It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and review on whichever platform you're listening to this on. We definitely appreciate the support. Also, if you want to join the Bread investing community, you can do so for just $1. Very excited for this episode today. Looking forward to getting into it. We have Darius and Courtney Pettway out of Louisville, Kentucky. They were our episode 26 guests, and we're having them back. Very excited to talk about how everything's been going. Thank you both for coming on again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yes,
definitely. So what's been up? It's been almost 2 years. So I know a lot has changed. So I guess for those who have not heard episode 26, I recommend checking that out. But if they haven't, it's first. Could you just let us know what you all do in the real estate game?
Okay, so I'm Courtney, by the way, and we basically invest in real estate. Pretty much we're strictly residential for now. We're looking into venturing into the commercial space, hopefully sooner than later if all goes according to plan. And if you follow us or have heard of us, then you know we primarily flip. And we recently launched our construction company.
Awesome. And so, I know that you two, I think maybe it was you, Darius, that basically both of y'all are now full-time in the business. Is that right?
Yes, you are correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
When did you put in your 2 weeks?
2019.
2019.
The end of 2019. It was in 2020 that was the first. 2020 was the first year that I actually just went all out for the business.
2021. Yeah. This is 2022.
You
got
it. It's still January. You're good.
Oh man, she is correct.
It's all right.
2020. Yes, she is correct. Mm-hmm. And then she's been since like 2018, 2017.
I quit February 2018, and then he was still working. So by that time we were doing okay, to cover what I was making. And then, but we didn't think it was wise for both of us to jump ship.
Take your time.
Which ended up working out because we ended up finding out I was pregnant. So it still worked out. We still had some consistent cash flow coming in from his job. But like you said, yeah, he put in his 2 weeks. Near the end, it was like November 2020. And we've both been full-time since then. So it's been crazy.
And to give a quick update, in addition to the construction company, we also have a financial literacy program called KidVestors.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And it came kind of along with the children, right? Once he had kids, things kind of hit a little different. And so knowing that the kids will have access to certain knowledge and things of that nature, that birthed KidVestors. And so we're excited about that as well.
Definitely. So as you both know, there seems to be this debate, right? So it's like, oh, you got a 9-to-5, you should be a full-time entrepreneur, or vice versa. And then there's a middle ground where some people are like, you can do both, and you can wait until you want to go in full-time. So I would love to hear about the and I've seen you have multiple different posts about this kind of thing, but I would love to hear from you too about just the mindset that you two had going to it, and just the steps you took to do it at the right time.
Right.
Okay. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, it's definitely situational.
Sure.
I do understand there are people who are in toxic environments, right? It might be mentally draining and not healthy for them to go to work. For that, I can definitely see where there might be exceptions, and you may not have, a whole plan laid out, because for your mental, wellness, you may need to jump ship. But for those where that's not the case and we just don't want to work, I don't recommend you leave your 9-to-5 before your 9-to-5 can cover not just your already existing expenses, but your business now, right? Because your business, you are not your business. Your business is its own entity, right? It has its own needs to stay afloat. So not only should you be generating enough revenue to sustain and grow your business, but also now replace what you were making to sustain your current lifestyle. So the reason why I quit and he kept working is because we cut back a little bit when we went from 2 incomes to 1. But when we used that to grow our business until we were generating enough revenue that now our business is also growing, but we can also comfortably cover our expenses. And then we have kids too. So, it's one thing when you just single and out here. When you got 2 little kids relying on and you eat, you have to be a little more wise and cautious.
Okay. And my perspective on that whole debacle is don't be self-righteous. Mm-hmm. In other words, don't get so caught up in yourself. There is a snippet that imbues self-righteousness. I believe it's the Breakfast Club. And what is Jay-Z's guy who they're no longer in cahoots? Dame. Dame is letting the entire club know, especially DJ Envy, how pathetic he is for working for a company.
I remember that clip. That was wow.
That went viral
While Dame he's speaking the truth, but he's not speaking it in love. He's speaking it out of self-righteousness. Like we can't operate like that, because believe it or not, DJ Envy is doing more than well. You feel me? Right? And so it's just important, like, don't even, if your goal to quit your job is to put everybody else down, you in this for the wrong reason, right? Just understand, like, okay, this is your lane. You stay your lane. I think the great philosopher LeVar Ball said, know your lane or stay in your lane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But just, wherever you are, wherever you've been called to, wherever you feel like you're going, you stay your lane. And if you see somebody trying to get it and doing everything that they can, and they still happen to have a 9-to-5, don't talk down to nobody, because believe it or not, they have, more consistency, because everybody want to be the boss to the rent is due, right? But yeah, just understand, like, you are not the center of the universe. Success is not monolithic. There are a lot of approaches. If you don't come in through the front door, you can enter through the back door. If the back door is locked, you can go through the window, right? Just understand, like, you are not the be all. You're not that important. Whatever path you've chosen, go forward, and just be sure to operate in a sense of humility. Nobody's not that important.
From a practical standpoint, though, I think especially social media, it can, it's the highlight reel, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people only post, the good. And so we don't talk about how the ups and downs, it's almost like the stock market, right? There are dips, but the trend is still upward, right? Yeah. And it's just like entrepreneurship. There are dips, but if you keep going and you don't quit, you'll continue to see. One of my favorite quotes is, you don't expect the fruit the same day you plant the seed. I'm probably misquoting it, but it's something along those lines. And it's like, we expect immediate results. And I can be guilty of that. Like, oh, we've been doing this 4 or 5 years. Why are we billionaires yet? Why are we billionaires yet? And you just have to remember to run your race at your pace, and don't get so caught up in the highlight reel. And like, it's real life, especially for families and people who have kids. You got health insurance. Like, okay, you want to quit? What about health insurance? What about life insurance? What about car insurance? Not just your business expenses. How are you going to live? And yes, we're believers, so we definitely still have faith, but I also believe God gives us wisdom to make wise choices. And so that's my spill in regards to 9 to 5. Keep it as long as you need to, and just have a plan of action before you quit.
Run your race
at your pace.
Right. And yeah, I agree. And it's just kind of sad that it's people are pitting each party against each other. It's like, well, if you're a business owner, you need employees. And I understand people might say, well, I don't got employees, I got contractors, they got businesses, but it's the same thing. They're not the boss, right? Somebody has to serve you, right? So, why can't we all just get along?
Virtual hug.
Definitely. You mentioned Darius, I believe you said last year was the first year that you both were in it. So talk to us about that. What were some of the ups? What were some of the downs in year one of being both fully in business?
Well, the ups were certainly, it's like the highs were really high, but the lows were really low, right? So say for instance, we end up getting capital and garnering funds and getting business from people and opportunities that we never thought, right? Mm-hmm. Random people or companies hitting us up, yo, we need this done, we need that done. Mm-hmm. But I'd say probably the hardest thing was learning how to love each other in that space. Mm-hmm. It's one thing for me to go to work and then come home and, have to, maybe deal with the family for a few hours or so, but it's another thing to spend all day, right? I can't, I don't have a break, right? And so that taught me how to love and to breathe and to just be. Mm-hmm. and exist and learn to appreciate her and her appreciate me, because believe it or not, it was exercise, bro. It was a social gym intensive where it's like, well, even the smallest things became big things, but they are only big things because we're in the house all day. So yeah. So the highs were okay. The great opportunities are coming about, but the lows were kind of figuring out how to love each other and not just become business partners.
Work together. Yeah. I think that was probably the hardest, because again, while he was working, I was kind of spearheading a lot of the decisions just for the lack of time on his end. So he still was contributing greatly, but obviously because I had more time since I quit my job, I was doing a lot more. And so when he quit, you're kind of having to learn how to work together again, like you're actual partners. So he's giving more input than I was used to. And I'm like,
it don't go like that.
Hold on now. This ain't what I've been doing. And so it was a lot of friction at first, learning how to work together as business partners, truly. And of course, you're two totally different people. So you have two totally different ways of approaching. And then our personalities, he's big picture, vision, like large scale. And I'm like, detail how we get there. Like, okay, let's come down from the clouds and let's like, okay, what does that actually look like? So there was like a lot of tension initially, if we're just gonna keep it a buck. But it's like a beautiful harmony, because no relationship, there's no growth, I feel like, without tension. And I think sometimes in any relationship, marriage, friendships, business relationships, you're gonna have tension, and you have to learn how to work through that tension. So I would definitely agree. The highs were, we made a lot more money, but the lows were, okay, relationally, how does this look?
We got this money, but we don't want to kill each other. So
right. Right. That's real. So has the way you do the flipping business changed at all over the past couple of years?
Yes.
What are some of those things that you would say have changed?
Number one, we spearhead. We are general contractors. We've been that for the past few years now, and that is probably the single change, but the biggest change, because what that has allowed us to do is have a lot more control over subs and pricing and materials and things of that nature. She can go further into detail, but that single thing, becoming our own general contractors, that has made a huge
difference. And like you said, not just obviously cost control. What was funny is we were taught to, and there's an element of truth in this. When we were getting our education and training, we were taught, to think as a CEO, right? So we never were the type to actually do the actual labor, right? Even as general contractors now, we don't actually do the work. We're outsourcing, we're using subs and stuff. But we were taught that, being your own GC was bad in a sense, because you were not in that CEO role. But I realized that there's a starting point, right? And we were actually losing money by, let me rephrase that. We're decreasing our profit margins. We were leaving money on the table by getting a general contractor. One, because we weren't their only project. They had our project and a bunch of other investors' projects. They weren't really carrying it. They were probably, or more than likely, I know, upcharging on materials, right? And the time it took, because we weren't the only project, our projects were taking longer, costing us more money and carrying costs, and we're having to pay gas, electric, and insurance and interest and all this stuff. So like Darius said, that's the single biggest thing that has helped us tremendously. And we're very selective now in our flips. We've done so many. We're like, nah, we ain't touching that one. It ain't even worth it. The time and all that has to go into it, and the money that we would potentially make, we can make that quicker somewhere else. And so we're very much more selective in what we're flipping. Like, it really has to be worth it for us to touch it now. Whereas year one, I felt like we were flipping everything with a roof. If we could flip it, we were going to do it. And we're like, nah, it's not even, especially when you have multiple streams of income now, it's like you can be a little more selective. So that's how I think it's changed.
Definitely. And as far as the criteria, what would you say, what are some qualities of a property that you would say, oh no, we're not touching this?
Oh man, it's all about margins.
Right.
It can look like whatever.
Right.
It can be a lipstick flip. It can be a total gut. It can be falling over, but it just comes down to money. If it costs too much and we know it's gonna burn us on the back end, like, we're not touching it. We used to do those hope projects where, okay, we're gonna pay a little bit more, but hopefully with what we're gonna do with it, we can get more money on the back end.
It's dumb.
After getting slapped over the head a few times financially, we don't do that no more. So at the end of the day, it comes down to the dollar sign.
Yeah, it don't matter how it look, because if you've seen some of our projects, they look like infested, like something gonna jump out at you. But at the end of the day, it's about profit margins. For us, our market in Louisville, the average is not LA prices. You can get a nice decent house around $225, $250, right? You're talking about, you could get a nice 3-bedroom, even 4-bedroom in some locations. Like, so those are our prices, just for context. And so you would have to, and we want to make around 40 to 50 minimum. That's our target for a flip. If we're not gonna make that, it's not worth it to us. Because especially with the flip, you're thinking, for us too, we're usually doing full renovations. Between permits and all of that stuff, you're easily looking at about 4 to 5 months just to complete. And that's not even including the sale time frame, right? And so you could be looking at maybe 5 to 6 months. And so I'm not trying to put in 5 to 6 months to make $5,000 or $10,000. Like, that's not, I can wholesale, right? There's so much other things I could do to make that much money. I'm not going to do that. And so those are just kind of the things. It's really the numbers at the end of the day. The house itself is not the deterrent. It's what's the margins looking like.
Definitely. And I love that you mentioned that, because some people just want to buy everything. They want to get into the flipping business. And I'm sure a lot of people who've taken your courses and who you've consulted with, I'm sure you've heard a ton of different things, right? And so to your point, it's important to be objective about it, and not fall in love with property.
Right. We were talking to one girl, and especially in the flipping business, especially new people, they think the only thing they're thinking about is purchase price, renovation, and sale. They forget about those extra costs, the insurance you're paying monthly, the electric, the gas, the water, interest, especially if you're borrowing money. And God forbid your flip don't go perfectly, right? We've never had a flip go perfectly. So God forbid it takes even longer, or your general contractor don't know what they're doing. They underbid you and you end up thinking, oh, it's an $80,000 project and it ends up being 100. Like there's so many things they don't factor in. They don't leave room for error. And so you see so many people getting burned from flipping because they're not really being objective. And so that's where we come in and try to help people. Like, real estate is a high risk, high reward industry. It's one of the reasons why banks are a little slow to lend and give out business loans for real estate investors, because it's a high risk industry. But with that, it's a high reward. So you just need to know what you're doing. You can be very profitable and successful, but you can also, on the other end, people have lost a lot. So it's not to be a deterrent, but we just try not to paint this pie in the sky picture when it comes to real estate investing.
Right. Definitely. What's the Louisville market like these days?
Oh, it's
definitely a seller's market.
Still.
I tell you that. We are listing. I think actually tomorrow, is it?
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow morning. And one of the things we're just being assured over and over is that when you do get, an offer, because of the way the market is, it's usually going to be a little bit higher, and the closing time is a little bit shorter, just because it's a seller's market, and it doesn't help with the Omicron situation and all these other variants, because all that means is that less people can work, which means that less materials being produced, right? And that creates a shortage, which again makes it more of a seller's market. So it's pretty good as of right now. And we are excited. In fact, we'll keep you guys updated on how everything goes. We're excited. So yeah.
Come to Louisville. People sleep on Louisville, which at the same time, I'm not mad, because like, okay, we'll just continue to stay in this market. But it's so funny when I hear investors, when we tell them, oh, we bought a house for $50,000 or $70,000, they were like, what? And it's like, well, that's common in places like here or Cleveland, some areas of Detroit. I don't know if Detroit is that cheap anymore, possibly Philly. And so I encourage investors too, like if you are in your expensive markets like LA, New York, it's not impossible and I think you talk about that, like out of state investing, like find investor friendly markets. A lot of our private lenders are usually in these expensive areas, and they may not invest in the actual real estate themselves, but they invest by either investing in properties outside of their market or investing with people like us, and then just getting passive income on the back.
We have a few angel investors in Cali. We don't know who they are, what they look like, but they check in with us. Hey, how's it going? Can we help you out with anything? And so yeah.
So
that's amazing. And I remember from the previous episode, just you two were talking about just private money, raising money from investors, and you don't know these people, but there's a business transaction, and you can agree on that, and you see eye to eye on that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on someone who wants to raise private money and get money from private investors? Like how would you suggest they go about it if they are at a point where they know how to get deals, they know how to structure things, like, but the missing piece for them maybe is just the financial part in finding these investors?
I'd say exposure, whether that be through your local real estate association or even conferences. At these, some of them are kind of janky. Nonetheless, you'll find people with money at conferences. And even, I don't know how we found, I won't say her name.
Which one?
The
first ones?
No.
Which one? Oh, the one she's lending on.
Yeah.
Oh,
how do we find her?
She found us through LinkedIn.
Okay.
Really?
They found us.
We're not even on LinkedIn like that. Now we have been, a little more active, but she literally, and that's why even when you go on our website, pettwayestates.com, we have to know where like our leads are coming from. And so on our website, we have a place like, how did you hear about us? And she literally put LinkedIn.
Yeah. So
like,
exposure,
okay.
So I guess by way of LinkedIn provided us the exposure that she reached out to us. But the more exposure you can get yourself out, get out of your comfort zone, meet people, and brag about what you're doing. Brag about what you're doing, brag about the homework that you've done. I call it footwork, knowing your numbers. When you know your numbers, you can throw those numbers out in a way that is attractive to somebody who's trying to make, more than 3 to 4%, on their investment portfolio. So just exposure and getting out of your comfort zone, and look for local things in your area. Like I said, real estate associations, conferences that is in your area, and you may fly to some, but those are avenues by which you provide yourself exposure and you kind of get out your comfort zone and shake hands. But that's the only way you're going to do it.
Right. A lot of people think, so private lenders are unique is that it is truly relationship and networking based.
Very
like you
true.
can't Google true private lenders. Now, there are a lot of hard money lenders out there that will pose as private lenders.
Yeah.
And one of the red flags, they're not a private lender, is when they come to you with a whole bunch of paperwork and all of this red tape, they're just a hard money lender and they're using private money just to lure you in. But private money, especially for those who are listening, they're true, like just peer to peer. It could be your mom, your dad, your cousin, your dentist, your teacher, a stranger you met last week. It's just everyday people who might happen to have lots of money in their 401ks, Roth IRAs, savings, checkings accounts, home equity. We've had people use HELOCs, we've had people use credit cards, we've had people use a whole lot of different ways. So it's just regular everyday people who have a lot of money who are looking to make your money work. Our first lenders actually came because we actually flew to a conference. We went to a conference and we were actually going to work with one private lender, and something happened. She ended up not having enough money to help us, but she referred us to another lender in her network. And we pitched the deal, and then it was uphill from there.
Yep.
And literally, it was just a relationship it wasn't even really a relationship. It was just a good word, rather, that was put in about us.
Definitely. And speaking of hard money lenders, what are your thoughts on hard money lenders and working with them?
Avoid it like the plague.
Tell us. And I'm glad that you have a different opinion, because there are different opinions about it, but I want to hear your perspective, because I think it's important for people to hear different opinions about it.
Okay, I'm gonna go first on this one. Listen, man, they're like, the literature is predatory.
It is.
So I just say avoid them. Like, it's just, they have so many domino effect clauses and things of that nature that they actually went out because they are never going to give you 100% of the purchase price, which means that they're going into the project winning. So if you screw up, they've already bought the house for 20% under market value. And most of the time, investors don't pay market value. So whatever lowball offer that you're surprised that you got, they pay 20% less than that. And they're going to get their money if you screw up, right? So that's why I just say avoid them altogether. Figure out something else, stack or whatever. But I just think the language is predatory. I have dealt with them before, and I'm happy to have gotten out of the situations. I don't know how in the world we did, but we got through it and we were done with them. And I got tired of calling them. And I didn't curse nobody out, but I definitely know I did let them know that I didn't like the situation that we were dealing with. They even charge you for draws. So they're already charging interest and points, but then many hard lenders, they charge you on top of that. They take a percentage of the draw that they're already charging you interest and points for.
Crazy. Wow.
It's just... You better know what you're doing. That's all I'm gonna say. Go ahead, babe.
So I agree somewhat. Hard money lenders is an option, especially in this market where it's a seller's market and your price is not the only thing people are considering. It's the terms, quick closings, correct, right? So that is one of the benefits of hard money, is usually you can close within 1 week. Some can do 1 week, especially if you have a relationship with them and you've done multiple deals. We've closed as quick as a week with hard money lenders when we were using them. But typically it's around a 10 to 14 day time frame. So those are advantages, and it's an option, especially when you're starting. Now, I will say you truly need to know what you're doing with hard money lenders. And if you're new, you need to have as much cushion and know what type of hard money lender you're dealing with and ask all the questions. So like, that's one of the things that we talk to our students. If you are going to pursue the hard money lender route, try to make that the last resort. And if you do, these are a whole lot of questions that you need to know on the front end. What's my interest? Do you charge for draws? What's the point? Am I paying for appraisals up front? I know you're telling me, okay, I only have 6 months. What happens if my project goes longer than 6 months? Are you charging me a higher interest rate? Are you charging me a higher interest rate and points? Is this per month? Do I pay this immediately? Do I pay it at the end of the loan? Like, there's so many questions that you need to know, so you're prepared if your project, especially for newer investors, because most projects don't flow perfectly the first time. So you need to know what to expect ahead of time, and you need to factor that in when you're analyzing your deal. Don't, especially with hard money lenders, don't go based on best case scenario.
Are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate? Yeah. Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance? You know who it is. The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the #1 place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
Assume the worst, hope for the best, but assume the worst and put your offer in accordingly. So that's what we so I hear what he's saying and I understand why, but don't count it out completely. Just be prepared. I'll say that.
Touche.
Yeah, that makes sense. So tell us more about KidVestors. I want to make sure we have some time to talk about that too.
Let me say this. Let me talk about it first.
Go ahead.
So obviously we were inspired by our own kids, but we were like, we were in our late 20s, we're in our early 30s now, and we literally didn't learn how to invest pretty much till in our late 20s. And when I think about the opportunity cost of all this missed interest in money that I could have been making, I get upset because I just didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know. And so we developed KidVestors because we did not want that to be not just our kids' stories, but no one else's stories, especially in our community. What's funny is we're entrepreneurs at heart. We were just at home chilling one day. And I was like, babe, how can we, create additional streams of income, right? Because we're real estate, we're not just real estate investors, we're investors. We invest in it all. Real estate is just probably our biggest, part of our portfolio. But we invest in stocks, we invest in crypto. And so he was like, we were just trying to figure out what other streams. And he casually was like, let's do a kid's book. And I was in my head, I was like, that is brilliant.
I don't remember any of that.
But I do. We were in our bedroom in the place we were at before, and my head just started spinning. So I was like, this is brilliant. So we start the process, of, you know, writing the first book. Initially, it was just going to be a storybook. It was going to be a bedtime storybook. So we write it, we do our research, find illustrator, we give it to him, and he's like, y'all, he said, this is boring. He said, nobody wants to read about real estate before they go to bed. And I'm like, you might have a point. So we start talking amongst ourselves, like, you know, we want to teach, kids really need this. They need to learn how to invest, yada, yada, yada. And then that's really where KidVestors was born, and it turned into an entire curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so not only do we teach how to invest in real estate, we teach how to invest in the stock market. We're teaching how to do money management, entrepreneurship, and we are going to team up and partner and teach kids and teens eventually how to learn crypto. We're going to partner with that because we're not experts in that yet. So we're going to leave that to the experts. But yeah, that's where it came from. I'll let you say. Do you have anything to say? No,
I mean, she's taking. I don't have anything else to say. Besides the fact I'm excited about it.
We are like, this is, you know how they say, like your passion, like real estate, it's fun, it's cool, mm-hmm. We love it. But I won't say like, that's not like my purpose, mm-hmm. is to buy property. That was just a vehicle. It was a vehicle to get us to really focus on what we want to do. And like, we do naturally have a desire to teach. Mm-hmm. And we started off teaching just adults, and we have now extended that to the youth through this curriculum.
And for those of you who are listening, you can help us this way with KidVestors, right? We desire for KidVestors to be the go-to resource for financial literacy and investing for kids K through 12. So we want this to be the go-to resource. Mm-hmm. It is diverse. Mm-hmm. It teaches concepts that would otherwise be dense in a simple way. We use the narrative in the story. There's a reason why we know the wheels on the bus go round and round, right? Not because we understand the way axle rods work, but simply because of a narrative and rhyme and rhythm. So we've combined all of this with KidVestors, and we want to get this out. Mm-hmm. For those of you who are listening, if you have resources and connections, y'all get at us. We'd love to be able to take advantage of those and get KidVestors out there. So yeah,
our long-term goal really is to get this in the school systems. And it was perfect timing because I don't know about all states, but I know like in Kentucky, they just passed a law 2 years ago that high schoolers are now required to take a personal finance elective. Mm-hmm. What's crazy is 2022 and they're just now doing that, but I digress. But it's needed. Like, again, how many adults never learned about this stuff? Like, it was not taught in school. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy. And so we're trying to change that. I believe we're first in market. Like, there's nothing out there right now for K through 12 that has a actual comprehensive curriculum teaching real estate investing, stock market investing, money management, business ownership in depth, in a way that they can understand, and also entertaining them at the same time.
This is true.
It's like we didn't just do a whole, we look like someone told us like, oh, so y'all got a whole studio over there. It was crazy. Like, it is like we got voice actors and illustrators and actors, like it's a whole thing. Like, we're really trying to dominate the market. So like Darius said, if y'all are listening,
be our microphone.
Help us get the word out. Like, our kids need this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely filling a need and filling a void. Mm-hmm. You know, we all have the same story for the most part. Like, we didn't know about, the majority of us just didn't know about this stuff because our parents didn't know about this stuff. People were just trying to survive, right?
Exactly.
But you know, we're in a different age now. There's so much more access to information, and you know, I would love to see this in school systems all across the country because it would just be transformative for kids.
Yes. I believe so. It's crazy. I think I was reading a thread, and I think she was an adult. She looked like an adult. And she asked, I saw two different comments. One was just like, what's an index fund? And then someone else was like, what's a brokerage? Someone else asked, like, what do general contractors do? Just like basic things. And sometimes we get caught in our social media bubble, especially those in the personal finance and investing space. We tend to follow like minds, right? So especially when you're scrolling, you think, oh, everybody knows this stuff. Mm-hmm. Go offline and talk to people in real life. Most Americans have no idea. They have no clue about just basic finance investment stuff, let alone how to invest in real estate. So yeah, I think it's needed. It needs to be common knowledge. And so we're doing our absolute best to make sure that happens.
Definitely. And so as far as the real estate business, are you two planning just to continue growing and scaling the flipping business? Or are you planning to get into some buying and holding as well? What's the goal?
Both end. And like she said, commercial too. We've gotten our accreditations in regards to the Department of Defense and the military. We've gotten all of those SAM requirements. We've gotten everything, all of our ducks in a row. Wow. We're just looking forward to our first project or commercial project in that regard. We're trying to expand on every front at the same time, move slowly and cautiously, if that makes any sense.
So when I say commercial, we are doing that, like commercial projects like construction, but we were looking at apartment buildings. And so what's crazy, we have people lined up already if we want to go ahead and go that route. I don't know if you've talked to Mark, Living Rent Free. He actually, he actually invited us to speak for a UCLA event. And while we were speaking, we actually, again, because of networking, we were connected to some private lenders who happened to be listening. And they were adamant about partnering with developers of color and investors of color. And so that's when we kind of got the green light, like, okay, it's our time to really go into the commercial space. And so we have the people in place. We just got to find the deal now. And know what we know now is like, you look at 100 and one might even be worth your time looking at. And then with this crazy COVID situation, sorting through all the documents, making sure it's not falsified. And, landlords are telling the truth. You're not just trying to pass on the problem property to us.
Right.
But it's a lot of moving parts. I think we'll always flip, but we're moving to not flipping necessarily because we have to, but flipping because we want to. And it's just, okay, it'll be play money. Okay, it's an extra 40, 50,000 we can put towards this. And so I think we'll always flip, especially since we're not doing the work. It's like, okay, it's easy money.
Definitely. And then talk to us as well about having a construction company. I don't think we really had many guests who've done that. So we'd love to hear more about that and how that came to be.
That came to be because we were getting screwed over contractors. It's that simple. So after being given a runaround and general contractors ghosting on us, and it actually happened involuntarily. We had a property where a general contractor ghosted on us, and by this point we had gotten used to it, and so we were like, no, we're not going to freak out. We know what's next, right? So we literally finished that project, and then we were like,
we don't need them.
Yeah, we don't need them. That was easy, right? And so, we picked up another one and then picked up another one. And basically that is how Pettway Construction was born. It is...
Got officially licensed.
Yeah, we're licensed, insured, bonded, the whole nine. It is unique though in the sense that working with subs, you also realize like now we have to keep them. And so that means even when somebody screws up, it's like, no, you can't like cut it off, no, because you might need them later. And so, just figuring out how to be better leaders, better communicators, better visionaries and things of that sort. But the construction has really really broadened my horizon, to be honest, because I'm pretty much, she's the admin, but I'm the one who kind of deals with the masters, the master electrician, the master plumber, the framers, the foundation workers, the roofers, the siding, the window guys, and so forth, the tile guys. I deal with all of them. So learning how to speak their language, be firm, but yet at the same time, be gentle enough as where they want to come back and work for me the next day.
What's funny is the logistics. Well, one, for anybody who's considering, becoming their own general contractor and starting their own construction company, one, you need to be organized and know your logistics, or it's just going to be a hot mess. So if you're not an organized individual and just know yourself, that might not be the route. And then on top of that, you might have people who are great at logistics and organized, but they lack interpersonal skills. So like Darius said, it's more so relationship building. It's okay, how do you build relationships with your subs that they want to continue to do work with you? So that is definitely something that you want to consider. And it was an additional stream of income for us. So not only did we get to obviously renovate our own properties, we actually started the company because we were able to do it for other clients and investors as well.
Yeah. So on the retail side, that was one of those things last year when I quit that was like, whoa, there's a lot of money on the retail side. So yeah, that was a hidden blessing.
Definitely. So y'all got a lot going on. How do and you have kids. So
that's the biggest job.
how does all that mesh together? How does all that flow together? That's a good answer right there.
Well, let me be more practical. The Lord has given us wisdom to schedule, right? So even when we do consultations, we only allow them between certain time periods. In the morning, I have set time to do X, Y, and Z, and she has time to do X, Y, Z. Then we have time to tend to businesses, time for kids. But it's centered around scheduling and flexibility and giving each other grace. Because without grace, I think we will have lopped our heads off along with our children. So
it really is practically a scheduling. Like I joke and I was like, I live by my Google Calendar. Like if it's not on there, it's not gonna be done. And I would like to say we're definitely family first oriented. So even though we're in the process of building our business, it's the perfect, one of the reasons we are doing these things is to allow us to be more present with our kids and each other. And so it sounds like a lot, but we be chilling. We be chilling because although we have KidVestors, we set it up in a way that it kind of, especially due to like technology, and you have all these different softwares as a service, and technology has allowed us to free up our time. Even with our flips, we're general contractors, but we're not at the property. Our team is doing that. And even with our construction, it's the same team that's working on our properties. They're just doing the retail side. So really, I joke and I say, we really run a logistics company. When you think about it, it just so happens to be real estate at the end of the day. Same with KidVestors. It's digital in nature. So once you create it, now you're just putting up a funnel and it kind of like works itself. So like, we really do be just be chilling. And it allows us to be present with one another and have time for our kids and stuff. And so we were strategic when we were doing these things so we could chill.
Definitely. So before we close, there are a couple of Instagram posts that I wanted to talk to you two about from your page and just have you expand a little bit more on that I enjoyed in particular. And so one of them was doors does not equal cash flow. And the reason I wanted to talk about that one is because it's not a bad thing to have a lot of doors. In
Right.
some cases, it could be a misrepresentation, right? I had a guest, I think it was Welby Aselli. He said sometimes doors can be a misrepresentation of performance, right? So like, yeah, you have 100 doors, but is it getting like $150 a month or $150 per door rather? Sorry, not per month, but like per door.
Right.
As opposed to somebody who has maybe 1/4 of those doors, maybe it's free and clear, or maybe their notes are very low and their rents are very high. But talk to us more about your thoughts on that.
I mean, you said it. Like,
dang, I should have let you say it.
you literally said exactly what we meant. Like, doors are not the big picture. And I know, especially again, I bring it back to social media. You hear people like, oh, I got 50 doors, I got 100 doors. And like, okay, you got 50 problems and 100 problems. And while those are good problems to have, hopefully, what is your cash flow like? What is your bottom line actually looking like? And I know it's crazy when I actually hear people trying to invest for like $150 and $200, net a month. I think that's crazy. This crazy to me, especially when we live in a technology age. You can make that, without even having a property and with less headache and not a huge mortgage. Now, granted, I do know with real estate, you have tax benefits and you have appreciation. You can borrow against it. I do understand that. But to me, I want to know what the cash flow is like. If I can do less, if I can make the same amount or more with less doors and have less tenants and less people calling me, of course, I'm going to shoot for that. So yeah, I think that the conversation doesn't need to be how many doors do you have? What's your cash flow? For those who do want to be a landlord, because I know some people don't really care to be a landlord either. They just want to maybe do REITs or something like that.
And again, I always get down to the root of the issue. When you see people, bragging about doors, it's usually just rooted in pride. Like, just people who are really, in my perspective, I am not God, but people who are really like making bank, like they don't have to, like, really, hey, I have 100 doors. Like, people who have like I don't understand it. Like, and at least the people that I like with money, they tend not to be so they don't brandish their usually accomplishments. And usually when you see the people with the Gucci, you gotta have a Gucci headband, a Gucci belt, a lot of the time they are barely affording those things, right? Like, I'm good with my Nike, or even if this was an upside down Nike I got from the Chinese store. No, I'm joking, I'm serious. But whatever, like, just like be grateful for what you have. Like, and what usually when I hear somebody say like I have 100 doors, in my head I'm like, either you really don't have that, or I wonder, what does your cash flow look like?
And honestly, I'm not trying to pocket watch because I really don't care. Yeah. But at the same time, for people listening, just don't get caught up. It's almost the same thing when people like, oh, I got 2 million in, real estate assets. Well, you freaking live in Miami. That's not like hard to do, or in California. So it's like, I think we need to, if we're going to talk about numbers, there's nothing wrong with talking about numbers if you want to, but I feel like we should be not misleading with our figures. If you're going to talk about, okay, an investor who wants to get into buying and holding, don't talk about the doors. Talk about, okay, what is your balance sheet looking like, right? If we're going to talk about it. And so for those listening, when you hear people talk about it, if they're open to sharing, because also nobody's obligated to give you all of their, their whole bank account information. They're not obligated to do that either. But if you're willing to, or if an investor is willing to, sit down and ask, like, I heard you were on such and such podcast and you said you had 30 doors, do you mind sharing with me, how much did it cost you? Like, what did you borrow? How much are you bringing in per door? Have those conversations instead of being boastful. I always try to say, I'm not going to tell you how I won without telling you how. So that's kind of like my philosophy. If I am going to boast or whatever, I'm at least going to tell you or give you the play on how I did it. That's just me though.
Everybody ain't like that.
Yeah. Definitely. And another one that was a bit could be perceived as controversial, but I thought it was a great question. It said, should investors buy distressed or abandoned properties to hold with no intention of restoration? What tell us more about that?
That was heavy.
Huh?
I remember we both said that.
It's you want to answer? Do we have the same answer?
We have differing opinions on
that.
That's good. That's good.
So you went first last time. I'll go first this time. I don't know that I'm a fan of that. It can be wise to just buy and hold, in the sense of, like, if you feel like you're in an area where you know it's going to appreciate, just waiting until that appreciation happens, then doing it. But I frankly feel like you're part of the problem, right? I think that when we approach any community, that we should do so as a gardener who's trying to make a plant healthy again. Like, we may need to prune, but don't just buy the plant and let it sit there and die, right? But that's some might say that's overly optimistic, because there are also tax benefits to having dilapidated homes. But I'll give her, she has an opposing viewpoint.
I actually don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Be honest. You can just be honest.
I see both sides. We're not in the business of losing money, right? So if I buy a property for, I don't know, $4,000, it's more than likely because I do believe that the area is going to redevelop. I'm not going to use the G word, but I feel like the area is making progress, but it's not there yet. So I understand from a business perspective and an investor perspective why I might buy a property, board it up and not touch it, probably for a couple of years till I feel like the value. Because, right, I'm not going to think, unless I'm using cash, right? If I'm doing an all cash transaction, and if I'm buying it for $4, and let's say, usually houses that cheap, they need a lot of work. So let's say I'm putting 100 in it. But let's say right now the houses are only worth 100, right? Or let's say they're only worth like 75, right? I'm not making really a return unless, again, I'm doing an all cash transaction. I can put a tenant in there and then I'll get my cash back in a few years. But for people, most investors who are borrowing money, it doesn't really make sense to do that until the values appreciate more. So what ends up happening, you end up with the house boarded up for years until the value goes up to, you either can pay for everything in cash or until the value goes up to where you can, finance and do whatever you need to do. But the problem, while I understand the investor side of it and how it could benefit me, I do understand how you're not contributing to the community at the same time, because now other people's equity are being affected because you have this boarded up house next to your neighbors. And when the appraiser comes to give an assessment, he's factoring in location. So he's also factoring in these boarded up houses next to yours. And keep in mind, comps are, appraisers are assessing your value based on sold properties. So if investors are buying up blocks and boarding up houses, those houses are not being sold. So you're not even contributing to the neighborhood. And so everybody's equity remains stagnant. So while you're hoping that, the area will appreciate, you're almost kind of working against yourself. So it's like a lot of moving parts. And so, and again, I can understand other developments come in, like areas like, if there's an Amazon coming in, or, other Fortune 500 companies can come in to help those areas appreciate as well. But yeah, it's just, I understand both sides, but from a moral perspective,
Mhm.
it does not help the community.
And some investors might say there's a difference between what is moral and legal.
Right.
Touche.
Legal, yeah, we know it's legal. Should you do it? Especially if we're all, you know, Black ownership and Black this and Black this, Black this. But then, you know, we're boarding up houses.
Yeah, definitely. All right, last one. So you said buying rentals without being liquid is a recipe for disaster.
Say that again.
So buying rentals without being liquid is a recipe for disaster.
You posted that. You got to explain that. I don't know. So you saying liquid? You saying cat?
Yeah, like buying properties in general, and you don't have capital if something goes wrong.
Okay,
so basically, we had a duplex.
Yeah.
That we bought. Long story short, found out there was a lot more problems with it.
Oh.
So we were we were newish.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what we didn't know. So we had an option: fix it up. And then the cash flow we would make, it would take a year or more, right? Just to recoup what we were going to spend in repairs, or sell it as is. So we opted to sell it as is, so we basically wouldn't lose more money. Had we, one, bought the property correctly, that's a first.
That's true.
2, had the knowledge to do more due diligence than what we did. And 3, had we had reserves before we bought, we wouldn't have had to sell it, and we would have still had that property today, and probably would have been sitting on a lot more equity because the area has appreciated greatly. So this is why 3 things: buy right, educate yourself, and have capital reserved. Mm-hmm. So when things happen, especially if insurance is not covering it, you are good and you don't have to sell your asset.
And this goes back to I think the conversation we were having earlier about having all these doors and you're tight at $200 a month. When something go leaking, when a roof leaking, that little 200 ain't gonna cover that. So you're gonna need some liquid somewhere. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And granted, of course, when we say 200, we're assuming that you've hopefully factored in your capex, you know, your maintenance and things if something does break down. But honestly, a lot of people aren't doing that. And so that's another problem. They're not analyzing their deals correctly. They're just calculating, oh, this is my rent, this is my mortgage, this is what I have left. Like, no, there's a lot more that you need to consider when you're holding properties.
Definitely. Appreciate y'all diving into those to those posts. I'm scrolling. I'm like, no, we got to talk about these. But yeah, I think it's good that, you know, people are able to hear the expanded thoughts on it. And things. So I think that's great. But this has been a great interview. I'm just thinking about, you know, the previous interview we had a couple of years ago, and y'all were doing great. And now the business is doing even better. You have KidVestors, you got the construction company, you got the flipping business still going, and so much more. So I think it's just inspiring to hear about the growth and just hear how things are going and how the family is doing. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners before we wrap?
Keep going, guys. Yeah. I still consider it. Do you still consider us new? Yeah, I feel like we're still a new business. We've only been
my
doing this
mantra is that I am a lifelong learner. Yeah. So I don't think we can be 10 years down the road, bro. And I still feel like, man, I just learned this yesterday. Right? So, just be humble. Don't take yourself too seriously. If you're humble and you don't take yourself seriously, that means you're willing to learn. And as long as you are learning and applying what you're learning, you will grow. Yeah. That takes a lot of humility to learn, though, because we like to pretend. Don't be a pretender. Yeah. Be a doer.
And just keep going. I always say losses. No losses, only lessons. We've lost a lot. One thing I think why a lot of people kind of rock with us is because we literally started and we showed y'all like our journey. Like if y'all scroll through our page, you'll see our first closing. Like, so we've always invited people to go along the ride with us. We never. Why are you laughing? We don't try to pretend.
Been a long ride.
It has been a long ride, but we still here.
Yeah.
And we've never, or at least we've tried not to. You know, we may have failed sometimes, I don't know.
Right.
But we've also always tried to not portray like people we weren't, like, you know, you ain't gonna see us in a Lambo tomorrow. Like we always try.
We rent one.
Yeah, we might rent one and flex.
We in Cali, we'll rent one and drive to where you at. Yeah.
But yeah, we just always try to be transparent and just let people know, like, it's a journey. You know, this is what we got going on now. This is what you can do. And I think what's inspiring for most people, based on what they told us, is that we literally started with nothing. Like we're not trust fund babies. It ain't
nothing wrong with trust fund babies.
It's not. We're trying to create our own trust fund babies. So there's definitely nothing wrong with that. But just to show people, like, if we can do it, and it might sound cliche, but if we can do it and literally, you know, invest in real estate and do all of this with not really a lot of experience, you guys can do it too. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Definitely. And let us know where we can find you, where people can find you, the websites for everything, socials and everything.
Okay. If you want to work with us in any shape, any way, shape or form, pettwayestates.com. Whether you want to be a lender, if you're in the Kentucky, Indiana area and you want to work with us on a rehab, you're more than welcome to. Pettway Estates also on all socials, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, everything. Now, if you want to learn from us and learn how to do what we're doing, go to flippingatz.com. And then if you have children and you want them to learn, or teenagers and you want them to learn how to invest, and not just in real estate, just learning how to invest in general and financial literacy, go to KidVestors.com, KidVestors.com, and also on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that stuff. So
awesome. Appreciate you two coming on tonight, and looking forward to putting this out.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Definitely. And thank you again to everyone for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. If you want to join the Bread Investing community, you can do so. Go to blackrealestatedialogue.com or click the link below in the show notes. You can get started for just $1. Also, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and review. It'll help us go up in the rankings and spread this message all over the world. So thank you all again. I look forward to hearing from you all soon.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button, and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.